In this episode of the Red and Gold Report, we're going to be breaking down what might be the most insane playoff game that I have ever seen. So what was the storyline of this game? Well, like jumping out of a plane with no parachute on, the only thing that mattered was the very end. The two teams were incredibly well matched. Both began the game with a touchdown and then finished the first half tied at 14. With 9 minutes left in the game, the Chiefs were only up by 5. And then when the 2-minute warning hit, man, the game turned into something that ESPN is going to have to make a documentary about. And, well, something that Bills fans are going to have nightmares about for about 3 generations. After destroying the Chiefs defense worse than a big kid destroys a piñata, Bills receiver Gabriel Davis caught a 27-yard pass, putting the Bills up 29-26 with 1 minute and 54 seconds left. Tyreek Hill answered back, though, running by every Bills defender like they were in slow motion for a 64-yard touchdown, sending the Chiefs up 33-29 with just 1 minute and 13 seconds left. Chiefs fans everywhere began to celebrate, but not too fast. The Bills' Gabriel Davis caught yet another touchdown pass, putting the Bills back on top 36-33 with just 13 seconds. Yes, just 13 seconds left. This resulted in about 6,000 Chiefs fans throwing their chairs through their TVs. But if you did that, well, then you were going to miss something incredible, because apparently if you give Magic Mahomes 13 seconds to drive on you, well, that is just too many. With a little help from a friend named Travis, Mahomes drove the Chiefs back down into field goal range, with Bucker kicking the game into overtime. But like a bad ShamWow commercial, wait, there's more, because in overtime, the good guys got the ball, drove down, and ended with an incredible catch in the end zone by Kelsey that was so close it was reviewed in New York, even though everyone was rushing the field already. Somehow, the Chiefs found a way to win this game. And I'm going to find a way to see a cardiologist tomorrow, because I'm pretty sure that I had about 5 heart attacks during the game. Seriously, this game was absolutely incredible. I had like 10 people texting me, this is the best game I have ever watched. There were 4 scores in the final 2 minutes alone. Yeah, 4 lead changes in the last 2 minutes of the game. There were 25 points scored in just the last final 2 minutes. And hey, as we get going, if you want your weekly Chiefs news brought to you by a guy who watched the last 30 minutes of the game, mostly standing on his coffee table like an insane person, then, well, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell on YouTube to the Red and Gold Report, and like us, follow us on Facebook. So, who was the MVP of the game? Well, you already know. It's got to be Mahomes, right? I mean, if you drive your team down the field to go on top in the playoffs with 1 minute left, you're a boss. If you drive your team down then for a field goal when you only had 13 seconds left, yeah, you're a legend. But then if you drive down in overtime to win the game, that is why you get a gold jacket, right? Mahomes threw for 378 yards and 3 touchdowns, but it was how and when he did it. Though he was playing behind an offensive line having a really off night, Mahomes kept the Chiefs in the game with sidearm throws and these weird off-angle, off-balance throws, even an NBA-style fade shot for a touchdown. He was playing out of his mind. But of course, it wasn't just what he did, it's when he did it. Get this, Mahomes threw for 177 yards after the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter. And while it often takes me 13 seconds just to get my dumb smartphone unlocked, Mahomes only needed 13 seconds to drive down the field to get into overtime. Oh, and Mahomes now has the most passing touchdowns through 10 playoff games of all time. Seriously, this is how you go to Canton. These are the games that put you in the Hall of Fame. Who else played well? Well, I mean, tight end Travis Kelce was just clutch. Sure, he had 96 yards on 8 catches, but of course, he had the touchdown catch to win the game in overtime. He had 2 long catches on those last 2 drives in regulation, and the first down in overtime. He was absolutely clutch. So was Tyreek Hill. Hill ended the game with 11 catches for 150 yards, but of course, that included the huge reception where he turned a simple dig route into a 64-yard reception that we all thought was going to end the game. A 16-yard catch in overtime. Oh, and he added that 45-yard punt return too. He was amazing. Both running backs, Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, played well. McKinnon particularly through the air, Clyde particularly on the ground. After a lackluster second half of the season and an injury, Edwards-Helaire was playing with an intensity that we just have not seen this season. That included a 22-yard run that was his longest of this year. Turning to defensive tackle Geron Reid was out for the middle portion of the game with an injury, but in limited snaps, he still had a goal line stop in the first quarter, another big stop in the second quarter, and a huge sack to end a Bills fourth quarter drive. Defensive end Melvin Ingram played excellent. He had a sack and a forced fumble, though it was recovered by the Bills. He also blew up a fourth quarter third down play with a quick pressure off the edge. I know Chris Jones didn't show up much on the stat sheet, but he played very well. Ingram and Jones actually combined for 8 pressures. And linebacker Nick Bolton had 8 tackles. That included 2 massive third down run stops on the day. He continues to play well and play downhill week after week, but he also has the speed to go sideline to sideline. But who didn't play very well? Well, it was not a pretty outing for the Chiefs defense. That included the defensive coaches who struggled, but we're going to come back to that in a bit. Linebacker Anthony Hitchens missed multiple tackles and allowed the 2-point conversion late in the fourth quarter. Defensive end Frank Clark should probably be a magician in his next career because he disappeared for most of the game. Also, twice, he just gave up on chasing a running Josh Allen, jogging lazily behind him on plays. And we got to talk about the defensive backs. Safety Juan Thornhill committed the Cardinal sin of deep safety play, allowing the receiver to get behind him for a 75-yard touchdown catch in the third quarter. Even though he was playing deep safety, he allowed over 100 yards all on his own. Corner L'Jarius Sneed was good in run support, but he had a very poor showing in coverage. He allowed a 31-yard catch in the second quarter and allowed the Bills touchdown with 13 seconds left in the game that we all thought was going to break the team's back. And corner Mike Hughes fell down on the play that allowed the deep touchdown late in the fourth quarter and also gave up another touchdown earlier in the game. He allowed receptions on all 3 of his targets. On offense, well, the offensive line just plain did not play well in pass protection. I mean, left tackle Orlando Brown allowed 4 quarterback pressures, right tackle Andrew Wiley allowed 4 pressures, and right guard Trey Smith allowed 6. That's ugly in itself, but particularly the offensive tackle play meant that the Chiefs tight ends had to stay in and chip on way too many plays to help out those tackles. On special teams, Harrison Butker missed a field goal and an extra point. He also nearly missed another kick, a third quarter kick. Yeah, I know that he made the 49-yarder to send us in overtime. That was amazing. But without his misses, we're not even in that situation. And I got to give the refs grief. They allowed a Bills player to viciously knee Mahomes in the head when he was out of bounds after the play was over in the third quarter without a penalty. And then they allowed a head-to-head hit by a Bills linebacker on Mahomes in the third quarter. Look, those 2 missed calls were utterly unacceptable. Those calls are exactly what the NFL keeps telling us they're trying to avoid, and the refs missed it. Come on, refs. You gotta protect the best player in the game. Next, let's talk about a few insights that you may have missed during the game. First is the running ability of Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes led the team with 69 yards rushing in the game. On the first drive, he had a 26-yard scramble and a 7-yard scramble and an 8-yard scramble that ended in a touchdown. Look, Mahomes, he's not a speedster. He runs a 4.8 40, but he manipulates defenders into missed tackles with pump fakes, and he knows where to find soft spots in the defense. I mean, if you realize that in the regular and postseason this year, that Mahomes has led the team in rushing on 5 different occasions, 5 different games, he was our lead rusher. But a less upbeat insight about the Chiefs is the defensive coaching staff. Look, a lot of Chiefs fans have been upset with the defensive staff this year, but they can't quite articulate the frustration. So this is how I want to put it. Our base defensive scheme is good, but the coaches struggle to adapt mid-game and use their personnel wisely. The Chiefs allowed the Bills wide receiver Gabriel Davis to catch 201 yards with 4 touchdowns. Now that actually set the all-time record for receiving touchdowns in a playoff game, all time, against the Chiefs this week. Now you might think, oh, Davis just must be an awesome player, but Davis actually only had the 5th most receiving yards on his own team this season. The coaches for the Chiefs just could not adjust the scheme to shut him down, even though he was just owning our defensive backs. It was the same problem in week 17 when the Bengals' Jamar Chase caught 266 yards. Now that set the all-time rookie record for receiving yards in a single game. So in the span of 4 weeks, the Chiefs defense has allowed 2 receivers to set new all-time records, because they cannot make mid-game adjustments to the defensive scheme. It's got to be something that we can improve going into next week and hopefully going into the Super Bowl. With this week's game in the books, let's move on to recent Chiefs news. In unfortunate Chiefs news, Chiefs linebacker Willie Gay was arrested last week in OP for criminal damage to property, which is a misdemeanor. From the vague details we have, it seems like there was an argument with some baby's mama drama, and a damaged door, a broken vacuum, which if I made terrible jokes, I'd say that this mistake to break a vacuum, well, it really sucks. But I'm not going to make that joke, right? Well, Willie was still in the game. We hope that this doesn't become a big deal for him. In other news, the Chiefs signed cornerback Damon Arnett last week to a reserve future contract. Now, Arnett was a first-round draft pick for the Raiders in 2020, but he was released last November after putting out a very scary video of himself brandishing a number of firearms and making death threats. He put this out online. One Chiefs news website said that this was a high-risk, high-reward signing for the Chiefs. I agree it's a high risk, but how in the world does this present a high reward? I mean, in 2020, no one other than the Raiders had graded him as a first rounder. Like, he was a 3rd to 6th rounder that got picked in the first round because the Raiders are garbage at the draft. Then in 2020, he went on to start for the Raiders and received a grade of 41.7 out of 100 from PFF, and then a grade of 32.9 this season. So basically, the Chiefs just signed a guy with massive character concerns from just a couple months ago who has proven to be one of the worst corners in the league. I think this is one of the most plain, stupid moves that the Chiefs have made in a while. In other news, wide receiver Tyreek Hill was fined $12,000 for his pom-pom celebration 2 games ago by the NFL, so he might need to put his cheerleader career on hold. In injury news, running back Darrell Williams was out of the game against Buffalo with a toe injury. Corner Rashad Fitton was out with a back injury. In other injury news, safety Tyrann Mathieu left the game very early with a concussion, and man, we hope he heals up by next week. We also got to get Fitton back. We got to get this defensive backfield going again. In fun news, this is now the 4th straight AFC championship trip for the Chiefs because we run the AFC. And finally, the Chiefs are going to be taking on the red-hot Bengals this Sunday. Now, I know that the Bengals just beat us earlier this very month, but here's the thing. It was only a 3-point win, and it was not at Arrowhead. So let's go red and gold, and let's go. Everybody that's going to be in this game, let's support them if you're going to be at Arrowhead this weekend. Well, that's it for the Red and Gold Report this week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Also, hit that little bell notification thing. It'll let you know when we come out with new videos. Got to follow this, like this page on Facebook. Hey, thanks for watching, and go Chiefs!